For the last 101 years, the Powelltown sawmill in Victoria's Central Highlands has processed the logs of native mountain ash cut from the forests that encircle this small town.
This is probably twice as strong as pine.
Right.
No knots, it's clear wood, and it makes beautiful, long-lasting timber that our grandchildren will be proud to own.
For the last decade, Harold Fox has been in charge.
I love the forest and I love the industry. And when I first started, I could see there was rip, chip, wood chip, people used to say, and they almost as though they owned the forest. But now we've come to a sustainable model. It's been good for the industry.
The trees he values are covered by what's known as a regional forest agreement, signed under the Howard government to give certainty to the forestry industry, while at the same time protecting the environmental values of the forests. The first of Victoria's agreements expires in 2017, and environmentalists want them scrapped.
In our view, the evidence really strongly points towards an end to native forest logging following the expiry of the regional forest agreements.
Dr Rasheen Sweeney is Senior Ecologist with the National Parks Association of New South Wales. He says the regional forest agreements suspend the usual environmental laws, which has led to the destruction of Australia's forests.
Our public forests in Australia are simply too important biologically on both a national and a global level to allow us to ignore 20 years of evidence and to simply continue with a business as usual model because logging is what we've always done, and as a society we're not capable of overcoming that inertia.
Conservationists say the agreements vastly overestimated the amount of timber in Australia from the beginning and have led to overharvesting ever since. Since 2004, 14% of this forest has been felled. Another 50% has been protected from logging as part of the agreements. Harold Fox says an end to native logging would destroy small villages like Powelltown.
If the native forest was to shut down, our mill's designed to cut native forest timber. It's not designed to cut pine or plantation wood. We would have to close down. Yeah. And our guys, I don't know what would become of them.
The mill here employs 33 locals from a population of just over 200. They are people like Mick Nightingale.
Well, I'd have to find somewhere else to live or travel to work every day, and the three boys also work here, so that's, they'd have to do the same. And for the local community, it's just going to wreck it. It's not going to be the same.
In the midst of an election campaign dominated by jobs and growth, it seems unlikely that either major party will move to scrap native logging.
Good afternoon. Very good, thank you. Senator Ricky Muir.
According to the one politician who knows the industry better than most, sawmill worker turned Senator Ricky Muir, that's a good thing.
If the RFAs are the agreement that we need in place for the industry to be able to continue moving forward, that's certainly better than not having an industry at all.
Across the country, the 10 regional forestry agreements signed by the Howard government and the states are reaching their expiration. Next year, the first two RFAs that were signed will expire in Victoria's East Gippsland region and in Tasmania. While the Labor opposition has not made their position clear, the Turnbull government plans to roll them over for another 20 years.
Have seen huge benefits by the fact that they still have very, very high standards of compliance and regulation, but they haven't got the added burden of having to, quite often go through rigorous, repetitive regulatory processes. They can achieve the good environmental outcomes with a simple process to be able to achieve that.
Forest scientist David Lindenmayer says the government should take the opportunity to overhaul the agreements.
There's no way that you could simply tick and flick an RFA process given all that new information. It's absurd to think that an RFA that was signed in 1997 would still be valid in 20 years' time in 2037 without taking into account any of this new information, let alone the effects of major wildfires and the effects of climate change on these forest ecosystems. It's silly policy, it's poor science, it's poor governance, and it's poor for the economies and social fabric of these areas where these regional forest agreements are supposed to represent the balance of natural resources.
The forestry industry wants to see the RFAs renewed and is calling on whoever wins government to assure the jobs of those employed in the industry. They insist the industry is one of the best in the world and operating sustainably.
The regional forest agreements were really supposed to be supplying balance, as it were, to Australia, to our natural forestry operations. But actually what we've seen is, whilst there's been a terrific level of environmental concern and a really wonderful use of sustainable forest management practices driven by that 20-year process, the estate that's available for harvesting that the industry works in is actually just about halved in that time.
We believe that
for conservationists like Karina Doughty, cuts to the industry are not enough. She's one of dozens of volunteers who have monitored and reported alleged breaches of the regional forest agreements and associated logging code of practice in the area near the Powelltown sawmill.
we've got to let trees like this grow old gracefully and perform all their ecological functions. You know, it's so crucial. It's after that time.
Breaches of the agreement include the burning of protected old-growth trees, logging near rivers and streams, and failing to detect endangered species nesting in trees.
They set fire to the areas that they logged the year before.
And did you see that this tree was alive when the loggers departed?
Yeah, many trees like this are alive until the post-logging burns.
She says the RFAs have demonstrably failed to protect the fragile ecosystem in the Ada forest.
We tried to reach a balance in the beginning, but what you'll find is that these forests are being locked up and used for the industry for clear fell logging. It's neither sustainable on an economic or environmental level. So reaching balance is so much out of balance now. We're at the 11th hour. These forests need our protection for our families and for the future of these forests.
More than a month out from Election Day, with the environment yet to factor as an issue for the major parties, the future of Australia's forests looks like a conversation for another day.